dedication. This is anti-hesitation.
Dedication.
It's a real nigga celebration. It's a dime block declaration. 59th and 5th Ave, granny house with vanilla wafers. Remedy to
Celebration.
Tupac of my
Generation.
Blue pill in the fucking matrix. Red rose in the great pavement.
What's up, y'all?
Black nigga trapped and he can't change it. Know he a genius, he just can't claim it. Cause they lack
Come on,
no
Nip.
platforms to explain it.
Come on.
He frustrated, so he get faded. But deep down inside, he know you can't
Fade
fade
him.
him. How long should I stay dedicated? How long till opportunity meet preparation? I need some real nigga reparations. Or I run up in your banks for recreation.
Dedication.
Hard work.
All right. Dedication. Shout out to Nipsey the Great. R.I.P. my brother. All right, I wanted to start this show off today with a little dedication. All right, to Nip. Appreciate you, bro. We miss you, but your memory and your legacy is here. And quite honestly, he is part of the reason that this show today, why I decided to do it. All right, K-Dot. So, while this plays a little bit more, I want to thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk, where we ain't scared. My name is A1, and I appreciate everybody that supports this show. Thank you very much. Much respect. And we got another good one. We got a good one. All right, so we're going to turn this down a little bit. All right, so again, thank you for checking out another podcast, We Ain't Scared Talk. Today. So first, let me say thank you to everyone that's purchased a mug. I really appreciate it. The sales are pretty good, and I hope if you are listening that if you've thought about it and you're still kind of on the fence. It's a strong mug. Matter of fact, it feels so good in your hand. I'm holding one right now, looking at it. We Ain't Scared Talk. It's strong. It's black. Who doesn't like something strong and black in their hand? Yeah, going over to the link that you see. They're being sold on Etsy, but ultimately, thank you for that. Thank you and to the subscribers. I'm so grateful to the subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. We got good content. This content makes you think. It's not comfortable in a lot of ways for some people, but my thought is it's only uncomfortable if you don't want to deal with the reality of it, the truth. And that's all I do is just share the truth, at least from my perspective. Okay, so let's see. Where are we? All right, so today's show, this is something that's been heating up. And again, as a result of Nipsey and his focus on what are called opportunity zones. We're going to talk more about that. But the title of today's show is Gentrification Wars. Gentrification Wars. Now, I'm going to give some brief backstory on that, and just kind of go with me. As usual, I got a few notes, and we're gonna really try to dice this thing up and talk about its evolution. It's not a new topic, but it is, in my opinion, escalating, and it's getting to be a little more hostile, not a little, a lot more hostile towards black people, poor people in the inner cities. And it is something that has to be discussed because we cannot allow this to continue unchecked. It's a very, very serious problem. So I take a sip of my coffee. Thank you to those that are sending me feedback that they enjoy the coffee and comics that I post every morning. Appreciate that. I always like to start the day off with something funny, because we're dealing with so much seriousness in the world. So here we go. Now, for those that do not know what gentrification is, and I dare say it's probably more of the non-black listeners that may not be aware. You probably do, but you probably are not as impacted by it. And I'm sorry, hang on 1 second. I just got to fix something here. All right, there we go. That's a lot better. Had to turn up the lights a little bit. All right, so The process, and this is the definition of gentrification, the process of renovating and improving a house or district so that it conforms to middle class taste. Okay, so there are a lot of areas that are undergoing rapid gentrification. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat or candy coat. To me, when you say middle class, I think it's code for white. I'm just going to just call it what it is, because when these rents go up or luxury apartments are built or the rates, the rents are so high, it is usually white Americans that are flocking to these areas to live. So, and let me just qualify this by also saying recently I did read an article that or had information about the accusation that even some black investors are equally guilty of the negativity associated with gentrification. So I kind of want to focus on that quickly and then redirect back. And that's because they're buying the properties and they're using it for, as I said, luxury condominiums or apartments, luxury apartments. Now, the fact is there are good and bad black folks. Okay, I think it's black people. We want to believe that we're all on each other's side. But the reality is capitalism, it can push people, left or right in terms of their thinking. Now, our job is to work, of course, with more of the good black folks, because capitalism is not going nowhere. I mean, that's what this country was built on. It's free to everyone to take advantage of. There's no ceiling, there's no bottom. So we just have to work so that we are aligning ourselves with black folks that share our same desire for, look, we're going to go in and we're going to purchase these properties, in these opportunity zones, that we are using it to really help create an environment where it's livable and it's affordable, more importantly. So thank you for that. And so let's go ahead. In the 1950s and 60s, black folks were relegated and stuck in the inner cities and ghettos in very large numbers. Okay, in some cities, especially on the East Coast, where they have more of the housing projects, the 20-story housing projects. White folks that were in the inner cities saw the increase, in numbers of black people moving in. And then what happened? It triggered what we all know as white flight. Okay, so that kicked in, and the white folks fled voluntarily. Okay, they moved out to the suburbs or on the outskirts of whatever major city they were living in. Now, all this was happening as, again, black people's numbers, they grew larger and larger. So, again, over time, white folks moved out, and then they realized they jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire. And again, this is in their ignorance, in what I'll call stupidity. They discovered that they were adding an additional 45 minutes to an hour to their drive back into the city to work. So that meant that their daily expenses increased, gas, their monthly expenses overall increased dramatically. So there's the start of the economic downside. Now, black folks, we were just trying to live. We were just trying to survive. Okay, day to day, and right when we were getting on our feet, boom, white folks decided, wait a minute, how come we have to live so far? Well, you idiot, you chose to move because of irrational fear. Yeah, irrational fear. And then they decided to develop a way to move back to the inner cities. Across the country, by whatever means they could create. And some of this was due to redistricting, redlining, raising taxes, increasing rents, and of course, what did that lead to? Pushing out lower income black people. So, and that sort of trigger or that focus or strategy on the real estate and rental properties, of course, it made everything more available to white folks. So it worked. Now, keep in mind, black folks' salaries, because all this, it comes down to salary, right? It doesn't matter where you want to live. It's how much money you make to live there. Okay, so white folks' salaries increasing, black folks' salaries remain stagnant, or they were decreasing. So, of course, now we're dealing with a even more dire housing crisis, okay, because of the limited dollars. So this is where we are today, okay, and to continue, cities across America made housing more affordable to white folks, and then the black folks had a decision to make. We're either going to stay or we got to go. And so who switched places? Black folks. Now they had to move to the outskirts or the suburbs of the cities. And this happened a lot, especially around 2005, 6, 7, right around there, right before the real estate housing bubble burst. And this was really bad in California, okay? And as some of you might remember, that subprime crisis, that just devastated poor people that had no business buying homes, okay, with those adjustable rate mortgages. But just to continue, we know the negative side effect. We suffered and we became desperate, and now we're fighting our way back to get into the inner city. Or if we're there, we're just fighting to stay. So this is why the gentrification wars, as I'm calling it, are heating up so dramatically. So let's fast forward to today, all right? Inner cities are the battleground for this new economic growth and development, okay? You have entertainment companies, you have businesses, corporations. Their interest in these inner city areas, they're skyrocketing, okay? And the rents, quite frankly, they're just not affordable. And this is with 2 adults working 2 full-time jobs, and heaven forbid they have 2, 3, or multiple children. Now, I've heard some numbers where there are 2-bedroom apartments that at some point, or at one point, was about $1,400. And they increased overnight, again, because of this gentrification, upwards of $3,000. Think about that for a moment. $3,000. So if you're making $60,000 a year, okay, just understand that it's about four grand a month. So you're talking $3,000. Well, a little over. But at any rate, you see where I'm going. It's insane because, again, wage slavery, and this is important. This is real, okay? When corporations or companies discriminate against smart, able-bodied, academically sound, and deserving black people by not paying them the same as their white counterparts, that is wage slavery. Salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living, especially for black people, especially, okay? Black folks, we are up against the wall. I mean, there's going to come a time, I really do believe this, where you could work 3 jobs, okay, and still not be able to afford rents or buy real estate. And again, this is happening right now, today in California. Okay, you have people living in their cars, working full-time jobs, making $50,000, $60,000 a year. But again, you know who is able to, with no problems? White folks. All right, now, this is, of course, a sneaky tactic. It's a nefarious plot to, again, push black folks further and further and further away from white folks. And white folks, this is the thing that really gets me, okay? This irrational fear. White folks act like black people enslaved them. Like we were the ones that came into their neighborhoods, okay, and destroyed and burned them to the ground. Ironically, I'm recording this podcast on June 1st. This is the 98th anniversary of the Tulsa, Oklahoma race riot, where whites burned down Greenwood or Black Wall Street in Tulsa to the ground. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of black businesses, all because some white woman decided she wanted to claim rape. But understand, this is the legacy and the history, okay? And again, white folks act like we lynched them, their husbands, like we raped their wives and abused their children, when it was them. That's why I don't understand where this is coming from. Okay, if anything, it's black folks that should be fleeing or avoiding living near white folks. I'm gonna just keep it real. Just call it what it is. Because this patty cake thing with racism, you got, only way to deal with it, you gotta face it. I always say you gotta face it to erase it. You gotta call it what it is. Okay? Because there's a lot of white men in this country that exhibit crazy, maniacal, deadly behavior with these mass shootings. And people just, oh, well, you know, that's, he was upset, he was disgruntled. I love that line. It was a disgruntled ex-employee that shot 12, 15, 20 people. No, he was a crazy white man. And he didn't know how to deal with that. And it's that psychosis. I mean, and I've said this before, I really do believe that white men in America, they are genetically predisposed for violence. I mean, there's historically 400 years of slavery and abuse. There is no other conclusion that you can draw. When you have people that have never done anything to you, but you find ways to go into their neighborhoods and their areas and abuse and mistreat them. That is a psychopath, a sociopath. And that's still putting it mildly. But let me continue. Okay, so to get back to the gentrification wars, and to be honest, Nipsey, as I said earlier, after his murder, he opened up a lot of people's eyes on the topic of what are called opportunity zones. So let me tell you what opportunity zones are, because this is really, really interesting. The opportunity zones incentive is a new community investment tool established by Congress, and this is in the Tax Cuts and Job Acts of 2017. And its purpose was to encourage long-term investments in low-income urban and rural communities nationwide. Okay? Opportunity zones provide a tax incentive for investors to reinvest their unrealized capital gains. So to make sure I don't lose you, let's make sure you understand what capital gains are. Capital gains, that is a profit from the sale of a property or an investment, okay? A tax is usually imposed when an individual parts with an asset. They sell it and makes a capital gain, meaning a profit on it, okay? So again, to reread that, opportunity zones provide a tax incentive for investors to reinvest their unrealized capital gains. So, I mean, get that, unrealized. So you are getting to invest and using your unrealized profits, okay, into dedicated opportunity funds. Now, you can go online, you can Google opportunity zones if you want to learn more about it. So to continue, Nipsey decided that he would use this community investment tool to pour millions of dollars into his community. Now, understand, I think I read one statistic that between, I want to say 2010 and 2013, Nipsey had amassed over $200 million. And that was he was going to use some of that to stem the tide of gentrification and help poor black people that were being misplaced. Or displaced, I should say, by gentrification. Now, of course, there are some sneaky black and non-black developers that also see an opportunity to invest in these opportunity zones. And then, of course, as we've stated, raise the rents to an extreme amount to continue the gentrification. While some black investors again, admittedly, are making the purchases to keep the housing prices at an affordable level. I think what we're running into is we got to make sure we keep an eye on those black investors to make sure they keep their word. All right, because poor people, lower income black folks, they got to stay somewhere. I mean, people have to live somewhere. I don't know where people think rich people think poor people or lower income people are supposed to go. It's aggravating to think that the greed by, again, non-black folks is so extreme that they would rather see black people homeless so they can make $1 than to keep the rents affordable. You know, again, capitalism, I get it, right? You have an opportunity to make as much money. I understand that. But the side effects of it are starting to become visible. Okay, so it's a foot race now for black investors to identify all the opportunity zones they can and stop greedy investors from their evil plan. Okay, black folks are already disenfranchised enough, and not having affordable housing is only going to pour more salt in this wound. Now, I do know that Queen Latifah has also decided to invest, I want to say $60 million in opportunity zones in New York. T.I. is involved. He's getting a group of black investors to join forces to identify opportunity zones in their areas and across the country, you know, for black people. You know, you gotta be aware of this insidious plan, okay? It's there, unfortunately, to erase our presence as black people in the inner cities of America with 3 Ks. And we built it. We built this bitch, as I always say. But, you know, we have to fight, as we're accustomed to doing, unfortunately, to create the kind of future that our kids need and deserve. I am definitely concerned for the next generation, okay? You know, I often ask myself, what do these gentrifiers expect? And I alluded to this earlier. You push poor black folks out of affordable neighborhoods, essentially and effectively making them homeless. And then you draft legislation making homelessness illegal because you bulldoze homeless areas or tent cities, okay? You arrest people for being homeless. Where are poor people that have jobs but can't afford rents supposed to go and live? I said that earlier. Where? I mean, is the ultimate goal to make poor people homeless and then arrest them and keep them in jail for free labor? Is this the next evolution to keep the prison industrial complex going? Is that where we're headed? I don't know, but nothing is beyond the realm of possibility when greedy white folks are involved. But black people, we've got to be aware. And that's the whole purpose of me, and especially this show. Just be aware that these things are happening and don't take things for granted. Okay, just because you're doing well, help the next black person do well. This is a horrible future that I see developing for black folks. And we've already had a terrible, horrific past. Educate yourself about these opportunity zones. And if you can invest in them yourself, instead of buying a $50,000 car, a $30,000 necklace, a $100,000 watch, okay, find some property to buy. Please invest in that. If you got enough to spend on a $50,000 watch, you got enough to invest in some property. Get you another watch from the profits that you make from the property. Nipsey Hussle was very forward-thinking, and I know that he left the blueprint for us to follow if we just do it. It's up to us. It's up to you listening who might be contemplating, buying, a luxury item. Okay, I can't tell you what to do with your money, but just contemplate. Well, you know what? Maybe instead of that luxury car, let me think about investment property in these opportunity zones. Okay? Continue the marathon. Continue. Fight and protect our people from these predatory practices. It's not good out here right now. It's not. So please take some time after this podcast, Google opportunity zones, and if you can join in the fight, please do. We got to fight. We have to fight. Now, I'm certain you have your own thoughts as usual, and that's perfect. That's great. Let's keep the conversation going. It takes a village, okay? It takes a village. So, I want to thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk. You got some good food for thought. Listen again. Tell a friend that we ain't scared. This is that dedication. Dedication to black people in the struggle and the fight for liberation. We got to have it. And like anything in life, if we are going to have it, we're going to have to fight for it. We're at war. Don't think we're not at war, black people. We are at war. All right? Okay, so thank you for checking it out. This is A1. And enjoy your day. Dedication.